As you'll see throughout this conference, we want to certainly surface the most interesting and important developments and insights that are happening outside of youth sports and figure out how we can connect them to what's happening in our industry. And we're going to continue to do that now with some specific examples of how technology and data are impacting youth sports. And so to lead this conversation, I'd like to welcome back to the stage Brian Litvack, League App's co-founder and CEO, and we're going to hear from him alongside other youth sports industry pioneers in sharing specific cases on how we're already seeing changes in the way that coaches teach, players develop, video is captured, organizations operate, executives leads. Take it away, gentlemen.
One thing NextUp helps us appreciate is what it takes to actually run live events, because just now we were all running around trying to look for Craig Moody, one of our guests, calling him and texting him and getting all nervous while he was sitting in the row in front of us while we were doing this. So we get a newfound appreciation for all of the work you do in making live events happen all over your communities every day. I am excited for this session, which is the actual impact of technology and data on youth sports. And with me, I have Travis McDonough, who we first met as part of the Dodger Accelerator back in 2015. He is the founder and CEO of a company called Conduct that is now called the Program. And Craig Moody from Shoot 360. I think we first met right before COVID as they were doing an installation with the Golden State Warriors, and Jeff, who is in the audience. So they are both using technology and AI in very interesting and applicable ways to youth sports. What I say about League Apps is we started as a company to have impact in how sports are organized in communities. And what I found out is we are a vertical software as a service, payments-enabled fintech software company. But at the end, we are very much a youth sports company, and what is fun in our organization is we get to figure out how to use technology to apply to sports. So taking it from some concept into something that actually we are super passionate about. And both Travis and Craig have done that. I will let them each give a little bit of 60 seconds of their background. So I'll start with you, Travis, who comes from a science and a academic background into performance management. So please tell us about it.
Yeah, I was a physical medicine practitioner that's kind of owned and operated a network of multidisciplinary healthcare chains, but realized there needed to be kind of a breaking of the shackles of a bricks and mortar environment and a technology to scale what we were hoping to do, which was to help create better athletes. We built a platform that the industry referenced as an athlete management system that essentially had three but interconnected components: a data aggregation, an analytics, and a recommendation engine. And we got into the world of elite sports to support the four raging demands in the market. How do you create a stronger, faster, more efficient athlete? 2, how do you help to mitigate the escalating costs of soft tissue injuries? 3, how do you identify talent? And 4, how do you help an organization participate in the arms race of amassing data, and not just to unearth epiphanies, but to take advantage of data monetization opportunities as well? And everyone in the room knows there's been an explosion of these data elicitation devices that emanate information from athletes' bodies, but it caused a couple major problems in the market that we tried to solve. But the problems were the data, they were sort of siloed, separate, segregated everywhere except for where they should be, which is one spot. And second of all, there was kind of the so what factor from the data. So what we did at Conduct, we became this promiscuous and agnostic ingester of all data sources around the athlete: blood, sweat, DNA, HRV, combine information, medical data. We hoovered it all into one spot, and through a complicated labyrinth of technical plumbing, artificial intelligence, and sports science, out the other side came at least information that could be leveraged by professionals around the athlete to make better decisions to get better outcomes. As Brian mentioned, we were lucky and privileged to work with the majority of the professional sport world, NBA, MLB, NHL, MLS, NCAA, US Olympic team, and then we started to expand the markets into these other allied health domains using the same technology. We actually sold the company in September 2020, and so I've been with the company for the last 3 years, but just recently branched out and trying to solve a new problem with a new company that we might get to, but that's about creating healthier communities at the grassroots level. But I have a tendency to talk too much, so I'm going to hand the mic over to you here.
Travis might be one of the nicest plus smartest people in youth sports. Every time I see him, I think how kind you are. Craig, Tell us about Shootsie 360. It's one of the coolest technologies and applications of technologies I've seen in youth sports. So give us a little bit about your background, how you started, but really, what is Shoot 360?
Yeah, thank you. And I think I'm out of my league here as far as how smart people are, but we'll tell you our simple story. So I was a high school and college basketball coach for about 20 years, and I retired out the first time in 2003, and my kids were starting to get to an age where they were starting to play, and I was kind of disenchanted, to be honest, with what kind of access they had and just what was available, gym access, coaching. If you're a regular parent, where do you find the opportunity for your kids to get better in any sport, right? And so I was kind of aware of some of the emerging technologies that were in the market. They were in the back of my mind because they were just starting to come out when I was coming out of college coaching. And then actually how it all kind of came about was my oldest son was starting to play club basketball more seriously. And what happened is he was actually in our TV room watching or playing video games with his team. And what ended up happening was it was a beautiful day outside, and I didn't come up with video games. We had a court outside. Hey guys, go out, let's play outside. And they looked at me and said, no way, we want to play video games. And I'm thinking, man, are you kidding me? So I walked out and I looked at my wife, and I said, if I could create a gym like a video game, I'd have it made. And essentially that resonated with me for a little while. I did some more research on the technologies that were out there. What I realized was they were really good technologies, but I thought they were using them the wrong way. They were just using them for testing. Sort of like running 100 meters, somebody tells you this is what you ran it at, but what does that really mean, right? Like how do I get better? And so we had an idea to basically use it for training and then gamify it so that it would be sticky and kids would want to come in and do it. And at the same time, we wanted to be super authentic to the game. I had a chance to have breakfast with George Raveling when I first started, just wanting some advice from him. And what he told me was, look, what you need to do, I can't tell you about technology, but make sure whatever you do, it transfers to the court. And so that's what we do. We use machine vision as where we landed on our technology. And we use our core things that we do are passing, shooting, and ball handling. And so we use science and math, and then we use a video game, kind of put them in an immersive video game experience so that they'll come back and want to train. And as an example, from the immersive video game side, I can be in Portland and somebody can be here in New York and we can play each other in real time. So that makes it very, very sticky. It makes it so they're able to compete, which is what all athletes want to do.
Hey, Craig, one thing we spoke about was this idea of 45, 11, and 0. And, you know, you hear coaches, and I'll let you explain that in a second, you hear coaches talk about that a lot. But then I heard you have 300 million shots of data to prove that point. So talk a little bit about what that means and how that ties into coaching.
Yeah, sure. So shooting really has been all about consistency, right? Like if you really look at it, the great shooters are super consistent. Our partner, who was Pillar Vision, some people know him as Noah Basketball, had done a ton of research and math around shooting. And it turns out, when we first started, that the perfect shot is 45 degrees as it enters the basket. It's 11 inches behind the front of the rim, and it's 0, meaning straight on. So what happened is that as we started accumulating data, and so everybody understands what we do, we have a 75-inch screen above the basket. And as kids shoot, we have what's called a splash meter on the screen. And it has arc, depth, and left-right. And as they shoot, it shows up on this pendulum where they're at. So in real time, they can make adjustments to their shot, which if you think about it in the long term, if it takes 10 years to become a great shooter, we're shrinking that down by giving them immediate feedback that they can make adjustments, and it becomes less about confidence and more about consistency. And so what ended up happening over time is we had 300 million shots, and what we figured out by mining our data is that the range is actually 43 to 47, the depth is 8 inches to 14 inches behind the front of the rim, and left 3 or right 3, if you can put all 3 of those in their range at the same time, you'll shoot 98% or better. So it's amazing stats, it's amazing analytics, and it immediately teaches the kid. People talk about muscle memory. It's actually myelin, right? It's the tendon that goes down, it gets thicker, and then that's how you can do something much quicker.
If only I would have known that when I was in high school. I shot 14% in my JV season. I was the math team captain, so perhaps that would have helped. Travis, talk about all the data that you ingest from different sources. And what's happening in youth sports and with a lot of the operators here is there's all these new technologies that they're being exposed to, sometimes sold to for wearables, performance, video training. How do you make sense of what technology might be applicable for your organization?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think you almost have to break out the difference between the pro environment versus the youth environment. The pro environment is very different. You have a plethora of experts around the athlete, strength coaches, athletic trainers, director of performances, and they are literally instrumenting the athlete with wearables. There are platforms like ours in the past, Conduct or Smartabase, that aggregate it, roll it up, and pull them in to derive metrics for insights. That same environment does not happen at the youth level. And at the youth level, I think there's a ton of data as it relates to tactical information or in-game statistical information or really exciting things like you're doing, but there's a lack of medical data and there's a lack of performance data or biometric data. And the magic happens when all 3 of those data sets coalesce. That's where the epiphanies, that's where the patterns, trends, correlations exist. So I think it's only early on in youth sports as far as eliciting information in those other 2 realms. But I do see there's a huge democratization of solutions that could change the game. I think any wearable technology, you have to be a little careful at the youth level because you got points of failure, you got inventory, you have shipping and handling, so you have some challenges that really need to leverage people. So I do think that the camera, as you mentioned, and we're seeing some incredibly exciting, innovative technologies that maybe we can talk about here in a minute or 2.
Sure. Yeah. Craig, you mentioned that the technology is cool and often gets the attention, but it is really the people and the coaches is the reason why they stay. So talk about the need to apply the technology in the right ways.
Yeah, so I think first thing is our mission is to grow the game, no doubt about it. The second piece of what we do is really we want to make a positive impact on kids. And I had much of the same experience that you all had in sports. I had a couple great coaches that inspired me to want to be better and to really want to make a difference with me. And so what I'd say is that as we look at technology, we always say inside our organization that technology gets them there, but it's the people who keep them. And so technology is really a complement to what we're doing. What we want to do is bring it in and leverage it so we can help them get better. What we don't want to do is what the previous panels said earlier, is take the humanization out of it. We want to make sure that we're using technology to give us clues and advantages to teaching.
Yeah, no, just further to that point, I think it's a great point. And I think we have to realize that in order for AI to work, because that's, I think, the topic here on the panel, you need data. And before you can get data, you need engagement. And before you can get engagement from kids, you need solutions that have gamification built inside them. So instead of it being a push or a top-down shove on, hey, do this, it becomes an organic bottom-up. I want to use this tool because it's fun and there's an incentive for me. So kids need to be invited into a digital ecosystem that they can fall in love with, and that's where we're going to collect the data that leads to the AI and the major breakthroughs going forward.
Yeah, gamification is a point that came up in our pre-conversations. Why is that so important when we talk about data and AI? Craig first, and then Travis.
So I didn't hear the first part.
Gamification.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, I think we're living in a world right now where kids, video games, their phone, everything's about digital, right? I mean, it's kind of how they live. And if we don't move in that direction and give them ways that are relevant to them today, then we're not going to have the opportunities that we could create otherwise. I mean, every one of us, if you're 35 or older, you're probably back from the time where people got in and just worked and went to the gym and sports was a big part of your pastime. Today, if you don't create that for them and give them a way to kind of take that in that's relevant to them, I don't think it happens. I think we have a whole generation that's on the edge of not using sports, and I would argue that sports is the biggest developmental thing we have in the U.S., that and the arts, right, in terms of, because those languages are universal, yet they're kind of falling off right now. And as sports people, youth sports people, we have a responsibility to figure out how we innovate and grab their attention and keep building on what's been a big tradition for America and everywhere internationally.
I can relate, as my kids think they're all Americans in Roblox. Travis, one thing you mentioned is we talked about the ethical considerations of all this data that we're going to collect on kids. How do you think that we as an industry should be thinking about that?
Anytime you're collecting data on youth, it's a sensitive topic. There's a moral and an ethical obligation of any technology platform to have zero porosity around their technical membrane, so it's critical. But at the same, in the same conversation, there also needs to be a moral and ethical contribution of your data into an opportunity to derive insights. So you look at the medical world, you look at historically all the data was in vanilla file folders, in filing cabinets, and the breakthroughs happened with electronic medical records that smashed all that data together, and it was there where there were major breakthroughs. So I think, I look at the youth market as an incredible opportunity to impact chronic disease as we age. So I think there's an obligation for us to be able to leverage that, use it, and develop insights to protect people from a lot of the ailments that plague the healthcare world out there today.
Speaking of data, we are past our time data limits of this panel, but so the final question for both of you is, you have a unique perspective of taking technologies that have been used for pro athletes and that have come down into youth sports. For Shoot 360, it's some of the same technology that Steph Curry and Trae Young and many WNBA players are using right now. What is your prediction for new advancements, whether it's AI, machine learning, or other types of technologies, and how it will impact and influence youth sports in the next generation? Start with you, Craig, and then Travis.
Yeah, I think it was Mike who said earlier that nobody can really predict what's ahead. The famous patent thing in 1900 that the most important inventions that have been done have already been done, right? That was so far off base. But what we're seeing is we've kind of become the epicenter for basketball, youth basketball, and innovation, because people develop great things, but you have to have a way to monetize it and get it to the bigger audience, right? It's very difficult to monetize things at the pro level. So what we're seeing is just crazy, some of the things that are out there that are happening. And I would predict that eventually, if you're not using technology to develop, and this is just not in sports, this is everywhere, but to give yourself kind of a leg up and an advantage, you're just gonna not have the opportunities and not be able to really get to your peak level of performance.
Yeah, and I think I'm super excited about camera-based biometric data. There are technologies now where you hold the phone over the face of an athlete, and through light refractory, it tells you your heart rate variability. It's telling you a bunch of metrics about the internal chemical soup of the body. So I think there's a lot of interesting opportunities going forward. In saying that, however, I do want to make sure that we all realize that, a lot of the athletes that we treat at the youth level, they're not going to make the pros. And to take a stat from Matt Young, who's at the back of the room, 2% of athletes make it from high school to university, 2% of those make it to the pros. Those are the same odds of, getting struck by lightning or winning the lottery, or pretty close to it. So I think we need to realize what we're doing in here is not necessarily just having them get the football in the end zone, but we're literally providing them with a physiological platform that they can build the rest of their health and wellness for future. And, I think that's just important that we don't lose sight of that fact. So we have an enormous opportunity to make an impact here. Yeah.
A few announcements. So Craig and Shoot 360 is now in over 30 facilities across the country. One of their first was with the Golden State Warriors. Jeff is in the corner and can tell you about it. It is a franchise model, which is an interesting model in youth sports, and they work with existing facilities as well as new facilities. So please find Craig if you're interested to learn more. And Travis is starting a new company and venture that he hasn't shared much about, but maybe if you get him
I'd love to tell you about it. Yeah, it's a gamified wellness engagement platform for communities trying to create a healthier commitment to wellness.
I feel a lot smarter after the last hour, but I still don't know how to tell anything with my Aura Ring about what I'm supposed to analyze or figure out, but I do wear it. And appreciate both of you. One announcement before we come to break here. We have some on-duty police officers here, and it's not because we have a referee panel and crazy parents. It's because those officers are with Katie and the Nassau County PAL, and they serve the community and the biggest PAL in the whole country. And it is near and dear to my heart, as I was an employee of the Great Neck PAL in my high school career and my high school years, the very same PAL we work with now, and got to see firsthand how crazy those parents are, but also got to see a lot of the positives of youth sports, and very much one of the reasons why I think I do what I do now. So if you see them around, go up to them and say thank you and learn more about their organization and how they impact the community. I'll call Danielle back up, and thank you to Travis and Craig.